Hello and welcome back to the Mystic in Training podcast with me, your host, Melissa Amos. I have just been packing to go on my trip to Scotland, and I'm going to be spending 4 days in the company of Dr. Robert Holden and his wife Holly and five other incredible humans on a mastermind retreat, deep dive, who knows what. And I am feeling anticipatory, this is for sure. If you've been following me for a while, you will know that I spent this time last year in his company in Scotland as well. This time, or that time, in the company of Michael Neal. And the change was profound. The introspection that I allowed of myself and the expansion that then followed, I know in some way is going to be a reoccurrence after this week. And it's really interesting because I think when we put ourselves in these situations, we can get in our heads about it. We can think about what's going to happen. We can also put all of our eggs in one basket and think, well, this is the thing that's really going to change everything for me. I think I'm going into this situation. I'm calling it, look how I'm talking about it, this situation. I'm going into this experience with my eyes quite wide open and with a sense of curiosity and openness. Because one thing I do know about going on these kinds of things, you can never know what's actually going to happen. And if this year has been anything to go by, I know that my soul is leading me to experiences that are way beyond what my human has ever really allowed. So let me rewind a little bit. This year, I have been on a 6-month journey with Robert in a mastermind called Shift Happens. And I joked with him at the end of the last call last month that, wow, does shift happen? You can think that maybe it was because of something he taught me or something that he shared or a particular quote or, there's so many things. And one of the reasons why I wanted to work with Robert in particular is our work really lines up. We are both have backgrounds in psychology or psychotherapy. We are both self-proclaimed mystics in training. I think we talk about spirituality and psychology in similar ways, although he has some, I mean, the man is very learned. I think there's nothing he doesn't know sometimes. But in particular, after working with him last year, what I've noticed is one of his great qualities is being able to ask some really incredible questions. That's been something that I've been working on personally, and of course with my clients as a coach and as a mentor, that I've really realized that our brain is just going off and doing this thing. And if you're anything like me, I have a really busy mind and it's always trying to work out something. If we leave our mind untethered and just kind of let it do what it wants to do, which is, by the way, one of these things where I'm like, when people say, I'm just surrendering to the universe, I'm like, your mind is just going to go off in 100,000 different directions. And if you're anything like me, it will go in and spiral down any rabbit hole that it then takes hold of. And I've realized that when we can give our mind a really good question, then it can start to go looking for a really good answer. And that's the nature of the mind. And I think for so many of us, we've been working at it in the wrong way. We give our brain our mastery and we're like, well, you go work it all out. And our brain's like, well, okay, this thought looks like fun. Let's just dive into that. So what I do know about this week coming up is that there are going to be many questions that I will be invited to answer, or maybe more so, invited to contemplate, invited to surrender. I just picked myself 3 cards, and surrender was the first one. And for me, surrendering really is this thing of like, well, I don't need to work it all out, but I do need to bring some form of direction in there. And for me, there's this really interesting dichotomy of control. Am I trying to get to a destination that I have self-proclaimed to be the thing that I want to achieve, and then surrender into that, the how? This came up in Soul Space the other day. Someone said, well, we don't need to worry about the how. And it was funny because someone came in later and went, the sacred how. And it's like, well, we do sometimes need to worry about the how, but for me, it's a dance. It's a co-creation. It's an understanding that here we go, where our ideas coming from, what is it that is really driving us? Are we really true to ourselves about what it is that we want to be manifesting? Like, are we manifesting out of, well, this is what I should be doing, this is what someone's told me is possible, this is what my parents think is the right thing to do, this is what society is telling me, this is what the Instagram feed told me that I should be doing, which is one thing? Or am I manifesting from this space of, oh, this is where my soul is really guiding me into? Am I open enough to listen into what my soul, my higher wisdom is saying? This is the way, this is what is possible, this is where your direction would like to go. And then moving step by step, not fully in surrender, but not trying to control. The dichotomy, there's always, every spiritual truth has a paradox. I think that's my only truth, is that every spiritual truth has a paradox, because it's this real dance between how much do I surrender, how much do I control, but you need to be part of this. And I'm going to give you a relevant example. I was invited to go on another one of Robert's retreats, and I was like, in my head, I was like, oh, this will be really good, and we're going to be learning this, and this will be great, and I'm going to la 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 la. But the whole kind of, I don't know, I was trying to convince myself about it in some way. But when this opportunity of going to Findhorn landed, I'm going to be honest here, I cried. I actually just had this wave of emotion come over me, and I was like, oh. Now, some people will start crying and go, this is not for me. But for me, this was this, okay, this is this next level. This is this growth opportunity. This is this expansion, this love, this soul growth that wants to come through me. And I knew that this was the place that I have to be in. And after completing 6 months of being in really quite a deep dive with Robert and 30-ish other people, and having come back from a 3-day retreat, actually not that long ago, really with a lot of answers, I realized that I needed to put myself in spaces where I can be held in my discomfort. I can be held in a higher place where I can be held accountable to my highest actions. Because when we're making big choices in our lives, when we're working on our identity, when we're working on our highest vision, and especially for someone like me whose work and whose identity and whose passion and whose vocation and whose whole life philosophies all come into alignment, I realize that we need somebody who can stand with us on that and keep on holding us into these higher possibilities. And that we have these patterned way of thinking we have our views of the past. We only know what we know, right? And that walking alongside somebody that can help rearrange my thinking, that can help ask those questions so that I, in a different way, or hold that question for long enough that I don't try and distract it, because our brains are so clever. They're like, "Well, yeah, I got it. Bing, bing. There's my realization." But then now what do I do with this? One of the greatest questions he asked me after I had a realization was, well, now how do you live with that? How do you live with that? What changes? What do you do differently? And we then begin to ask those right questions rather than it become another story that we're telling ourselves. And what I've loved about working with Robert in particular is he does have these extraordinary ways of asking extraordinary questions. And it's not because he's trying to lead us into a particular answer, but it's because he trusts and knows that somewhere in there, with the right question and the right quote and the right support, that you have the answer to. And then he lets you come to that. What I've noticed about the human's default condition is that we seem to ask quite binary questions. Things like, should I stay or should I go? Or should I launch or should I charge more? Or should I trust myself on this? Or should I launch this business? Or should I make this call? And that often isn't the right question. A better question might be, and this was one that I was asked at the beginning of Shift Happens, how do I bring more of myself into the conversation? How do I live a truer life? What wants to come through me? What is meaningful success to me in this? And the irony is that the more we grapple with the binary questions, should I do A, B, C? Should I do this or that? Should I stay or should I go? The more confused we get. But as soon as we start asking questions like, how do I bring more of myself into this conversation? The answer to the original question comes, because you realize what is really important for you. You realize that life is leading you somewhere. You realize that the question isn't so much which option you take, but how you take this option and what it is that you're hoping to get from it. And that's been my real gift over these last 6 months, is I've been asking myself some really deep questions. And I've been being held accountable to what those answers are. And I've been working in community to really let those things be witnessed in our evolution, with the assumption that shift happens. Which, if we're honest, for most of life, everyone just expects you to stay the same. Maybe stay the same plus more, grow your business, have more things, keep accumulating. But linear shift happens suggests change is not just possible, it's inevitable, it's the goal. And what I've learned is that it's more about evolution, which for me is conscious growth, than just growth for growth's sake. And so I'm about to fly off and be in this beautiful spiritual eco village. And if you don't know about Findhorn, go look it up. I remember last year when I went there, the land just started working on me from the second I walked onto its boundaries. surrounded by the sea, on a sand dune, a forest grew on a sand dune, come on, with these incredible people and these incredible questions, and this willingness on my part to really bring more of me into the equation, being willing to walk in through whatever light or dark comes up, and knowing that on the other side I'm making some big promises to myself. Of course I'm in anticipation, of course I'm a bit nervous, of course I'm distracting myself, and of course I am in great gratitude. We've got to choose good mentors in our life, not necessarily the ones that know the most, but the ones that help us come back to ourselves. And I think that's what it means to be a mystic in training. So I will see you on the other side. Bye for now.